My name is Sarah Mitchell, and for the last 6 years, I've been washing dishes at Rosie's Diner on the corner of 5th and Madison in downtown Portland, Oregon. The steam rises from the industrial sink every morning at 5 a.m., fogging up the small window that overlooks the alley where delivery trucks rumble past. My hands are permanently wrinkled, the skin cracked from the scalding water and harsh detergent. I'm 24 years old, and this wasn't supposed to be my life. When I was 18, my world collapsed in a single afternoon. My mom, Julia, had been battling cancer for 3 years. We'd spent every penny we had on treatments, experimental drugs, anything that might give us more time. Dad had left when I was 7, so it was just the two of us against the world. She died on a Tuesday in March, the kind of gray, drizzly day that Portland is famous for. I held her hand as she took her last breath, and I've never felt more alone in my entire life. What made it worse was knowing that help had been out there all along. My grandfather, Richard Harrison, was a successful real estate developer. He owned half the commercial buildings in downtown Portland and had a mansion up in the West Hills with a view of Mount Hood. But he'd cut off my mother 20 years earlier when she married my dad, a struggling musician he deemed unworthy of the Harrison name. Even when Mom got sick, even when I called him begging for help with the medical bills, he refused. His secretary told me he wanted nothing to do with that part of his past. After Mom died, I had nothing. The hospital bills crushed me. I'd been accepted to Portland State University with plans to study nursing, but I had to defer, then defer again. Eventually, I just stopped trying. I found a tiny studio apartment in Southeast Portland, in a building where the radiator clanged all night and the neighbors fought loud enough to shake the walls. And I found work at Rosie's Diner, where the owner, Rosie Martinez, a kind woman in her 60s with graying black hair always pulled into a tight bun, took pity on me and gave me a job despite my lack of experience. "You got honest eyes, mija," she'd said that first day, her weathered hands patting mine. "That's all I need to know." The work was brutal. 10-hour shifts standing over that sink, scrubbing pans crusted with burnt bacon grease, plates smeared with ketchup and syrup, coffee cups stained brown. My back ached constantly, but it paid my rent, barely, and kept me fed. The waitresses, Linda and Jade, would sneak me extra pancakes or eggs when Rosie wasn't looking. They knew I was living on ramen and whatever I could scrape together. 6 years passed like that. 6 years of watching my dreams dissolve in dishwater while my grandfather lived in luxury 15 minutes away. I never tried to contact him again. What would be the point? He'd made his choice. Then, on a rainy Thursday morning in October, everything changed. I was elbow deep in suds, attacking a particularly stubborn lasagna pan from the previous night's dinner special, when I heard the bell above the diner's front door chime. Through the order window, I could see into the dining area. The morning rush had died down, leaving just a few regulars nursing their coffee and reading the Oregonian. I glanced up out of habit and froze. Walking through that door, shaking rain from his expensive wool coat, was my grandfather. I would have recognized him anywhere. He looked older than the photos I'd seen, his hair completely white now instead of salt and pepper, his face more lined. But he still had that same proud bearing, the straight posture, the way he surveyed a room like he owned it, which, technically, he probably did. He owned the building Rosie's was in. My heart started pounding so hard, I thought it might break through my ribcage. I dropped the scrub brush into the water and gripped the edge of the sink, my knuckles white. What was he doing here? In 6 years, I'd never seen him come into Rosie's. He had people for that, assistants who collected his rent checks and handled his properties. Linda approached his table with her notepad and welcoming smile. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I watched as he ordered. Coffee, black, eggs over easy, whole wheat toast, bacon. The same breakfast my mother used to make him on Sundays before the falling out, according to the stories she'd told me. I stood there, hidden in my kitchen alcove, just watching him. Part of me wanted to march out there and confront him. Ask him how he could sleep at night knowing his daughter died practically penniless while he sat on millions. Ask him if he ever thought about us, ever wondered if we were okay. Ask him if he felt anything at all. But I didn't move, because another part of me, the part that had been broken 6 years ago, was terrified. What if he looked at me with those cold eyes and still felt nothing? What if his rejection of me was just as absolute as it had been of my mother? So I stayed in my corner and watched as Linda brought him his breakfast. He ate slowly, methodically, reading something on his phone. Just another wealthy old man having breakfast at a diner, probably slumming it for some reason I couldn't fathom. To my shock, my grandfather came back the next day, and the day after that. Within a week, it became clear this wasn't a random occurrence. Richard Harrison had made Rosie's Diner part of his routine. He always arrived at 7:30 a.m. after the morning rush, but before the mid-morning lull. He always sat in the same booth by the window, the one with the view of the street. He always ordered the same breakfast, and he always sat alone, reading the newspaper or working on his laptop. I learned to time my work to stay hidden. When 7:25 rolled around, I'd make sure I was deep in the dish pit, my back to the order window, my hands busy with something that required my full attention. Linda and Jade started to notice my strange behavior. "Girl, you okay?" Jade asked one morning. A young black woman with braids and an infectious laugh that usually brightened my day. "You've been acting weird all week." "I'm fine," I muttered, scrubbing a pot that was already clean. "You sure? You keep ducking down every time that old white dude comes in. The one in the fancy coat." She leaned against the counter, her dark eyes studying me with concern. "He giving you trouble or something? 'Cause Rosie don't play that." "No, nothing like that." I forced a smile. "Just, I don't like being watched while I work." It was a weak excuse, but Jade let it drop. Still, I could feel her watching me more carefully after that. The truth was, I couldn't stop watching my grandfather. It became an obsession. I memorized everything about his routine. The way he folded his newspaper into precise quarters, the reading glasses he'd pull from his breast pocket, the fact that he always left exactly a 20% tip, never more, never less, the way his jaw clenched when he read certain articles, the only crack in his otherwise impassive expression. I started to notice other things too. He looked tired. There were dark circles under his eyes that expensive suits couldn't hide. Sometimes his hand shook slightly when he lifted his coffee cup. He'd lost weight. His coat hung a bit loose on his frame. One morning in early November, I was refilling the soap dispenser when I heard his voice clearly for the first time in years. "Do you have honey?" he asked Linda. "For the tea?" His voice was raspier than I remembered, weathered by age and what sounded like a lifetime of unfiltered cigarettes. My mother's voice had been musical, light. There was nothing of her in his harsh tones. "Sure thing, hun," Linda said warmly, bringing him a small plastic bear filled with honey. "Thank you," he said, and something in his tone made me look up. He was staring down at his tea, and for just a moment, his carefully controlled expression slipped. He looked sad, deeply, profoundly sad. It was gone in an instant, his mask sliding back into place, but I'd seen it. That glimpse of vulnerability shook something loose in me. This wasn't just the cold, heartless man I'd built up in my mind. This was a human being, alone in a diner, looking lost. As November turned to December, Portland's rain intensified, turning the streets into rivers and the sky into an endless gray ceiling. Christmas decorations started appearing in shop windows. Rosie strung lights around the diner and put a small tree near the register. The cheerfulness felt hollow to me. My grandfather kept coming. Every day, 7:30 a.m., like clockwork. I kept hiding, watching, trying to understand why he was here. This wasn't his world. The man who lunched at the Portland City Grill and attended fundraisers at the art museum. Why Rosie's? Why now? One particularly brutal shift, I burned my hand badly on a hot pan. I bit back a scream and ran cold water over the blistering skin, tears streaming down my face from the pain. Rosie saw and immediately took charge, wrapping my hand in clean gauze and putting me on light duty for the rest of the shift. "You go home early, mija," she insisted. "That needs proper care." "I can't afford to lose the hours," I protested weakly, even though my hand throbbed with every heartbeat. "I'm paying you anyway." Rosie's firm tone left no room for argument. "You've never missed a day in 6 years. You've earned it. Now go." I left through the back door at 2 p.m. instead of my usual 4 p.m. closing time, my burned hand cradled against my chest. The December air was crisp and cold, a break from the endless rain. I walked slowly toward the bus stop, my mind foggy from pain and exhaustion. I was half a block from the diner when I heard the shouting. Turning around, I saw a commotion near Rosie's front entrance. A man, disheveled, wild-eyed, clearly intoxicated or high, was waving something around. My heart lurched when I realized it was a knife. Through the window, I could see customers ducking down, Linda frozen behind the counter with her hands up. And there, still seated in his booth by the window, was my grandfather. Everything happened in slow motion and lightning fast at the same time. I saw the man kick open the door, heard him screaming about money, about respect, about things that made no sense. Saw him advance toward my grandfather, who'd stood up, his hands raised in a placating gesture. I was running before I made the conscious decision to move. I burst through the diner door just as the man lunged. I don't know what I thought I could do. I'm 5'4" and barely 100 pounds, but instinct took over. I grabbed a chair and swung it with my good hand, catching the attacker in the shoulder. It wasn't enough to stop him, but it threw him off balance. The knife clattered to the floor. "Run!" I screamed at everyone, at my grandfather, at anyone who would listen. The man recovered quickly, rage contorting his features. He shoved me hard, and I crashed into a table, pain exploding through my ribs. Through the ringing in my ears, I heard sirens. Someone had called 911. The attacker heard them too. He cursed, looked around wildly, then ran out the door and disappeared into an alley. I lay there, trying to catch my breath, my burned hand and my ribs competing to see which could hurt more. Strong hands helped me sit up. I looked up into my grandfather's face, really looked at him for the first time in over a decade. "Are you all right?" His raspy voice was urgent, his hands steady as he checked me for injuries. "Don't move too quickly. The ambulance is coming." "I'm okay," I managed, even though I wasn't sure that was true. "Are you hurt?" "No, thanks to you." He studied my face intently, and I saw the exact moment recognition flickered in his eyes. They widened almost imperceptibly. My God, Sarah. I couldn't speak. My throat had closed up completely. After 6 years of hiding, of watching from the shadows, he'd said my name. "Sarah Mitchell, Julia's daughter." His voice cracked on my mother's name. I didn't know you worked here. Why would you?" The words came out bitter. "You made it clear you didn't want to know anything about us." He flinched like I'd slapped him. "That's not..." But the paramedics arrived then, flooding the diner with uniforms and equipment. They insisted on checking both of us. My hand needed better treatment, and they wanted to x-ray my ribs at the hospital. I tried to refuse. Hospital bills terrified me, but Rosie wouldn't hear of it. "I'm calling you a cab to the ER, she said firmly, "and Mr. Harrison is paying for it." I started to protest, but my grandfather nodded immediately. "Of course, whatever she needs." The next few hours passed in a blur of hospitals and police statements. My hand got properly dressed. Second-degree burns, but they'd heal. My ribs were bruised but not broken. They gave me pain medication and discharge papers and sent me home with instructions to rest. Through it all, my grandfather stayed. He sat in the waiting room. He spoke with the police. He paid my bill without hesitation, his credit card appearing like magic. He didn't try to talk to me beyond asking if I needed anything, but he didn't leave either. Finally, as I was being discharged, he approached me hesitantly. "Can we talk?" he asked. "Please. There are things you need to know." I was exhausted, hurting, and emotionally wrung out, but I nodded. We sat in his car, a sleek black Mercedes that probably cost more than I'd make in 5 years. The leather seats were soft, and the interior smelled like expensive cologne and leather conditioner. Rain had started again, drumming on the roof, cocooning us in a bubble of sound. "I've been coming to that diner every day for 3 months, he said finally, staring straight ahead through the windshield. "Looking for you." I turned to stare at him. "What?" "After Julia died." His voice broke on her name, and he paused, collecting himself. "I hired investigators. I needed to know if there were children, if I had grandchildren. They found you, told me where you worked, where you lived, everything. So you knew." Anger flared hot in my chest. "You knew I was barely surviving working in that kitchen, and you did nothing?" "No." He finally looked at me, and his eyes were wet with unshed tears. "I came to do something. I just didn't know how to approach you, how to apologize for something unforgivable. So I kept coming back, day after day, trying to work up the courage to speak to you. I didn't even know if you'd recognize me." "I recognized you the first day," I whispered, "and you said nothing. What was I supposed to say? Hi, Grandpa. Remember me? Remember letting your daughter die because of your pride?" He flinched again, but didn't look away. "You're right. That's exactly what I did. I let my stubborn pride destroy my relationship with Julia. When she married your father, I told her she was throwing her life away. We fought. She said she didn't need my money or my approval. I said fine, and I cut her off completely. His hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white. For 20 years, I convinced myself I'd done the right thing, that she'd made her choice and had to live with it. But then my wife, your grandmother, died 2 years ago. And suddenly, I was alone in that big house, and I realized what a fool I'd been. I tried to find Julia, to apologize, to make things right. She was already dead, I said softly. She'd been dead for 4 years. 4 years, and I didn't even know my own daughter was gone. A tear escaped, running down his weathered cheek. The investigators told me about the cancer, about the medical bills, about you calling my office, begging for help, about my secretary turning you away on my orders. He turned to face me fully. Sarah, I will spend the rest of my life trying to make up for what I did. I know I can't undo it. I can't bring your mother back. I can't give you back those 6 years you spent struggling. But I want to try. I want to know my granddaughter. I want to help you build the life you should have had all along. Why should I trust you? My voice was small, all the anger draining away into exhaustion and sadness. You abandoned us once. How do I know you won't do it again? You don't. His honesty surprised me. All I can offer you is a promise that I will do better. I'm 78 years old, Sarah. I'm sick. Heart disease. The doctors say I have maybe a few years left if I'm lucky. I don't have time to waste anymore. I don't want to die alone, without family, without having made amends for my worst mistakes. We sat in silence for a long moment, just listening to the rain. The college fund, he said suddenly. Julia had a college fund. I set it up when she was born. She never knew, but I couldn't bring myself to dissolve it, even after we stopped speaking. It's been sitting there, growing with interest. There's about $200,000 in it now. It's yours, for school, for whatever you need. I couldn't process the number. $200,000, enough to finish my degree, enough to never have to choose between rent and groceries again. And your mother's medical debt, he continued. I've already started paying it off. It should be clear within the month. You'll get a letter from the collection agency. I don't understand. My voice was shaking. Why are you doing this now? Because I'm an old man who's running out of time to fix his mistakes. He smiled sadly. And because today, my granddaughter risked her life to save mine. A granddaughter I didn't deserve, who had every reason to let that man hurt me. But you didn't. You protected me anyway. I couldn't just stand there, I said. Even after everything, you're still family. Then maybe, he said hesitantly, maybe we could try to be family again. Real family, not just biology. I know it won't be easy. I know I have to earn your trust, but I'd like to try if you'll let me. I looked at this old man, my grandfather, seeing him clearly for the first time. Not as a villain or a distant figure of wealth and power, but as a human being, flawed, regretful, trying to make amends before time ran out. I'd like that too, I whispered, but I need time. I need to process all of this. Of course, take all the time you need. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a business card. My personal number. Call me when you're ready, or don't call. Either way, the money is yours. No strings attached. He drove me home to my tiny studio apartment. As I got out of the car, he said, Sarah, your mother would be proud of the woman you've become. I know I have no right to say it, but I'm proud of you too. I nodded, not trusting my voice, and walked into my building. 3 months have passed since that day. I'm writing this from my dorm room at Portland State University, where I'm finally pursuing my nursing degree. The medical debt is gone. My apartment is nicer, in a neighborhood where I can sleep without hearing fights through the walls. And every Sunday, I have breakfast with my grandfather. We're still learning how to be family. Some conversations are awkward. Sometimes the weight of the past sits heavy between us, but we're trying. He tells me stories about my mother as a child, filling in gaps I never knew existed. I tell him about my dreams for the future. Slowly, carefully, we're building something new from the broken pieces of what was lost. I still work at Rosie's, though now it's just a few shifts a week between classes. Not because I have to, but because I want to. Those women, Rosie, Linda, Jade, they were my family when I had no one else. They're still my family now. Last week, my grandfather came in during one of my shifts, not at 7:30 a.m., but at lunch, and he didn't come alone. He brought flowers for Rosie, thanking her for taking care of his granddaughter all these years. He ordered lunch for the entire staff, and when he left, he hugged me goodbye in front of everyone. "See you Sunday, granddaughter," he said. "See you Sunday, Grandpa," I replied. As I watched him leave, Jade sidled up next to me, grinning. "So that's what all the weirdness was about. Girl, you could have just told us." "I know," I said, smiling through tears. "I know. Life isn't perfect. I still have hard days. The scars on my hand remind me of everything that happened. But I'm learning that sometimes the people who hurt us the most are also fighting their own battles, carrying their own regrets. And sometimes, if we're brave enough to let them, they can change. Maybe not completely, maybe not perfectly, but enough." My mother used to tell me that family isn't just about blood, it's about who shows up for you when it matters. For years, I thought my grandfather proved that saying wrong. But now, I understand what she meant. Family is also about second chances, about showing up even when it's hard, even when you're terrified, even when you don't know if you'll be forgiven. My grandfather is showing up now, and so am I. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough.